Canada stands at a pivotal moment in its history. Once defined by vast landscapes, natural resources, and a quiet presence on the world stage, it is now grappling with profound questions about its future. Immigration is reshaping its demographics. Innovation is redefining its economy, and identity is stirring debates about who Canadians are and who they aspire to be. From Toronto's bustling multicultural streets to the remote towns of the prairies, the country is quietly negotiating the terms of its next chapter. But behind the politeness and maple leaves lies a story of tension and transformation, a struggle to balance openness with cohesion, progress with tradition, and ambition with belonging. Few countries rely on immigration as much as Canada does. With one of the lowest birth rates in the developed world and a rapidly aging population, immigration has become the backbone of its economic model. Each year, hundreds of thousands of newcomers arrive with dreams of stability, opportunity, and dignity. Yet, this influx also sparks questions. How many immigrants are too many? Can housing, healthcare, and infrastructure keep pace? In some cities, rents skyrocket while waiting lists for doctors grow longer. Still, for many Canadians, immigration is not just policy, it's a reflection of national values. Openness, diversity, and the belief that newcomers strengthen the fabric of society. Canada's story has often been written in resources, fur, timber, oil, but the future cannot rely on what lies beneath the ground. In an age where technology and artificial intelligence dictate global power, Canada faces a critical test. Can it reinvent itself as a hub of innovation rather than just a supplier of raw materials? Cities like Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver are buzzing with startups in fintech, biotech, and clean energy. Universities attract global talent, and research labs make breakthroughs in quantum computing and AI ethics. Yet, brain drain remains a haunting phrase. Too often, Canadian innovators pack their bags for Silicon Valley, leaving the question, will Canada be the brain factory for other nations, or will it finally claim leadership in the industries of tomorrow? What does it mean to be Canadian? For decades, the answer was tied to politeness, multiculturalism, and peacekeeping abroad. But identity is shifting. For Indigenous peoples, the narrative of Canada is one of dispossession and resilience, demanding reconciliation that goes beyond words. For immigrants, Canadian identity is both an aspiration and a negotiation between heritage and integration. For younger generations, identity is tied less to symbols like hockey or the Mounties, and more to global values, climate action, social justice, digital connectivity. Canada's identity is not dissolving, it is expanding, becoming more fluid and contested. That contest is shaping politics, culture, and even daily interactions. As immigration fuels population growth, Canada's housing shortage has become one of its most pressing crises. Vancouver and Toronto often rank among the least affordable cities in the world. For many young Canadians, the dream of home ownership feels increasingly out of reach. This fuels resentment, not always against immigrants themselves, but against a system seen as unprepared. Economic inequality widens, and the promise that hard work equals opportunity feels fragile. This is where immigration, innovation, and identity collide. Can Canada welcome the world and still provide a sustainable life for its own citizens? Or will the social contract crack under pressure? Canada's future identity cannot ignore its geography. Stretching into the Arctic, Canada controls vast territories that may become strategic superhighways in a warming world. Melting ice could transform the North into a new frontier of trade, resources, and conflict. But climate change is not just a geopolitical asset, it is also a devastating threat. Forest fires, flooding, and rising temperatures are reshaping lives. Indigenous communities in the North, long marginalized, may find themselves at the center of global attention as guardians of crucial lands and waters. The question becomes, will Canada lead as a climate innovator and protector, or will it repeat old patterns of exploitation under a greener disguise? For decades, Canada marketed itself as a mosaic rather than a melting pot, where cultures coexisted rather than assimilated. Today, that model faces new tests. Social media fuels polarization. Global conflicts spill into Canadian streets, as seen in protests about Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, or other wars. Hate crimes rise. Political leaders walk a fine line between celebrating diversity and addressing fears of fragmentation. And yet, everyday life, often, tells a different story. Neighbors sharing food, classrooms filled with dozens of languages, cities where Diwali, Eid, Christmas, and Lunar New Year are celebrated side by side. The challenge is ensuring that this mosaic is not just symbolic but truly sustainable. Canada's identity has always been shaped by its position between great powers historically, Britain, then the United States. Now, it navigates a multipolar world where China, India, and emerging economies demand attention. Immigration policy often reflects this reality, attracting skilled workers from Asia, Africa, and the Middle East to fuel industries at home. Innovation also depends on global partnerships in technology and trade. But this raises questions. Can Canada assert an independent voice, or will it always be a cautious follower of US policy? The answer will determine whether Canada becomes a middle power with influence or a quiet partner overshadowed by giants. Inside Canada, generational divides are deepening. Older Canadians, many of whom benefited from affordable housing and stable jobs, often clash with younger Canadians burdened by debt, high rents, and precarious employment. Immigration, too, plays differently across generations. While younger Canadians tend to embrace multiculturalism, some older voices call for limits, fearing cultural erosion. Innovation also carries generational tones. Young Canadians dream of startups and digital empires, while older ones remain skeptical of crypto, AI, or radical technologies. The future of Canada will depend on how these generations negotiate power, policy, and identity, and whether they can build bridges instead of walls. In the end, Canada's story is one of possibilities. Immigration ensures the nation's survival, but tests its resilience. Innovation offers prosperity, but risks inequality. Identity creates pride, but also conflict. Canada is not just a land of lakes and forests, it is a living experiment in coexistence, reinvention, and hope. Its future will not be decided in Parliament alone, but in classrooms, businesses, neighborhoods, and homes where Canadians, old and new, decide what kind of nation they want to build. The world is watching. The question is, will Canada seize this moment to define the future on its own terms, or let the tides of history decide for it?